Hey, future coders! Welcome to our channel. Today we will see Ioc Container. In Spring Framework, the inversion of control, Ioc Container, often referred to as the application context or bean factory, plays a central role in managing the life cycle of objects within an application. It handles the instantiation, configuration, and assembly of beans, which are Java objects managed by Spring. The Ioc container relies on XML configuration files to gather information about beans and their dependencies. These XML files specify bean definitions, including class names, properties, and dependencies. During application startup, the Ioc container reads these XML files and instantiates beans accordingly. It also resolves bean dependencies, injecting the required beans into their respective dependencies as specified in the configuration. This assembly process ensures that beans are properly configured and wired together. Additionally, the Ioc container manages the life cycle of beans, handling their initialization and destruction phases based on specified lifecycle callbacks. Overall, the Ioc container in Spring simplifies the management of object dependencies, promotes modular and maintainable code, and enhances the flexibility and scalability of Spring applications. The main tasks performed by Ioc container are to instantiate the application class, to configure the object, to assemble the dependencies between the objects, instantiating the application class. The Ioc container is responsible for creating instances of application classes, beans, defined within the application context. It manages the creation of these objects, allowing the application to request instances as needed without directly managing their creation. Configuring objects. The Ioc container also manages the configuration of these objects. This configuration includes setting properties, initializing variables, and any other necessary setup required for the object to function correctly. Configuration can be done through various means, such as XML configuration files, annotations, or Java-based configuration. Assembling dependencies. One of the key responsibilities of the Ioc container is to handle the dependency injection process. It determines the dependencies that each object requires and injects them into the object at runtime. This enables loose coupling between components, as objects do not need to know how to create or obtain their dependencies themselves. There are two types of Ioc containers. They are bean factory. Application context. Difference between bean factory and the application context. The org.springframework.beans.factory. Bean factory and the org.springframework.context. Application context interfaces acts as the Ioc container. The application context interface is built on top of the bean factory interface. It adds some extra functionality than bean factory, such as simple integration with Spring's AOP, message resource handling for I18N, event propagation, application layer specific context, e.g. web application context, for web application. So it is better to use application context than bean factory. Using bean factory. The XML bean factory is the implementation class for the bean factory interface. To use the bean factory, we need to create the instance of XML bean factory class as given below. The constructor of XML bean factory class receives the resource object, so we need to pass the resource object to create the object of bean factory. Using application context. The class path XML application context class is the implementation class of application context interface. We need to instantiate the class path XML application context class to use the application context as given below. The constructor of class path XML application context class receives string, so we can pass the name of the XML file to create the instance of application context. Thank you, coders. Don't forget to subscribe our channel. Have good coding.